Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
I'm excited.
Same.
Today's going to be a bit of a booty breakdown. I want to just get the fundamentals of muscle growth down pat. So if anybody's listening who, beginner to intermediate, somebody who just wants to level up their growth, this is going to be the one-stop shop for
100%.
muscle growth.
Yeah.
And what perfect person to do it than the booty builder himself.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. And no, I'm so excited. I haven't done many podcasts, and I love to speak. I love to teach and educate and just do my thing. And no, it's an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for having me on. And I love talking about glutes and getting gains. And and pretty much for me, it's that's my main focus and my main market for girls. And that's basically what I do, is just help girls grow glutes, burn fat, and feel great.
What made you want to coach women particularly?
Honestly, it's the fact that I think I have so many sisters. I have 4 sisters, 1 real sister, 3 stepsisters. So I'm surrounded by women. I have my amazing mum. And then I've got my cousins are all females as well. So I was just kind of just brought up in the sense of we're really close family with our cousins. So we just spend a lot of time together. And I think just organically I get along really well with women. And I seem to I guess just create good relationships. And I guess one thing I do hear quite often is I make them feel comfortable, and and that to me is extremely important, and there'd be nothing worse for me to hear is a brother, a man's made my sister feel uncomfortable and shit like that. Oh, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Sorry. Can swear. But yeah, that sort of stuff would nothing would get me more. So I guess it's just kind of come to me naturally when it comes to communicating with people and just helping people. And over time it's kind of driven me closer towards sort of leaning into focusing all of my attention, time and effort to educating myself towards helping girls. And I think it's just kind of naturally fallen around. But it wasn't something where I was just decided. It definitely happened over time.
Yeah, well, for anyone, most of you won't know, but I used to live with George.
Crazy.
You are a good communicator and you are good around women. It's so important, I think, to have a coach that you trust and you trust, but they do have to make you feel comfortable. I think it's so often that women, especially young girls, they come into the scene and they get a male coach who they trust and respect, but maybe they don't make them feel comfortable. And so they kind of do, you sort of just do whatever they say and you don't question them. And sometimes that relationship can be a bit almost teacher's pet kind of vibe. So it's nice to have somebody that you trust and respect, but also who just makes you feel like an equal and comfortable and safe.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And it's one of the biggest things that even now I try focus on growing more in and getting better at as well, because, I think at the end of the day as a coach, my job's to help you succeed. And it's easy to give someone a nutrition plan and a training program. I know it works 100%, but it's okay, how can I help this girl follow it? How can it be maintainable for her and in a way where she can actually communicate and talk with me and, tell me about how she's feeling. And it gets better as we work together for longer as well with any of my clients, as the relationship builds. But it is such a huge factor to, I think even these days, the success I have with the transformations and the girls that get these awesome results, it's just the ability for us to adapt and work together and communicate. And if they feel comfortable, then we just get along, we have fun, and they get to learn a lot more as well. Because it's hard when, you're scared to tell your coach something, or you're they're going to get mad at me. It's I don't get mad, no way. It's just, constructive feedback and always being honest with ourselves. And, it's, really helps so much. I really, really do think it makes a big difference. Feeling comfortable is huge.
And your mindset is huge. That's why I started this podcast, because I learned in my journey that if you don't have the mindset behind something, you're not going to actually follow through. Someone can give you a nutrition plan or a coach can give you a training plan, but if you don't really have the self-belief, you have limiting beliefs, or you don't have trust for the coach or whatever, that training plan's going to mean shit. Really, at the end of the day, that's the least important thing.
No, I 100% agree. And it just makes a big difference to the client too. Because, you want to feel happy and feel like you're being heard, and, your coach is actually really trying to help you. You're not just another number out there. And it's realistically, as a coach myself, and, I'm sharing with you, we've got multiple clients that we're helping on a similar journey. It's all the same sort of thing, but it's different. And it's different in the sense of like how we communicate and how we work shit out. And I think that's a big part, and where sometimes maybe other coaches can fall. So yeah, and working with females made it very clear to me that that's like, a big part of the success.
Yeah.
And yeah, getting a good little team together, it's pretty awesome.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, well, you coach so many you've got big names, you've got people that I'm sure listeners of this podcast follow, which is really cool as well. I think it's nice to see a big range of people as well, like not just athletes. You've got like people that are just new to the gym, weight loss, whatever. But okay, so let's talk about growth, muscle growth. This is what we're all here for. We're obviously all here because we want to grow, we want to build shape, we want to look our best. But I want to strip it back for a minute. Why is building muscle so important for us beyond how we look?
Because I think like muscle is like, people see that, and I think you would relate massively being a bodybuilder. But like when we see muscle or we see like an awesome physique, it says so much more than just like, whoa, you got big glutes, girl. Like genetically 100%, there's going to be beneficial factors to how someone looks. But behind the scenes is like muscle and building muscle and getting stronger brings so much more than just an aesthetic body and big glutes. When you work hard and you earn that, it earns you a lot more as well. It earns you the confidence, it earns you the mindset, it earns you the perspective on life and how to work through, hard sets. Everything we do in life is cross-relatable. And if we can like intentionally dive into these sort of things in the gym and build the muscle, it comes with so much more than just the booty, right? And yeah, like I said earlier, you and I would both look at people that are like, some of the best bikini competitors in the world or like the biggest bodybuilders in the world. And, for me, I'm like, damn, man, you would have worked so hard to have that. And it says a lot about the person. And I actually say this all the time to my girls when I'm like training them or talking with them. And it's like, you've got to remember that when you're trying to, build muscle and grow, it's who you get to grow into and become. That's the most rewarding and most powerful part of everything. And as a benefit of that, she's got sick glutes, and that's going to be, a big part of the motivation. Because yeah, muscle says so much more than just like, damn, you look good,
100%. It's one of those things that like your body is a direct representation of your habits and the way you see yourself.
100%.
And it's interesting as well, like, because I think we look at people and we look at their bodies and go, okay, like that took hard work and whatnot. And I think insecure people look at people with the big muscles and stuff and they kind of go like, oh, she's so lucky. I must have come so easy. And when they start to realize that actually work got you there, that's when they start to realize, oh, well, work can also get me there too.
100%. I actually have like a really good example as well of like, I guess just like having realistic expectations and just like understanding the facts, and I think online these days as well, you can see these sick transformations that are like 8 weeks. It's like, dude, that was like 8 years. Okay. But it got you to sign up, so great. But realistically, it's like one of my clients, I won't name her, but we first started training together. She was a little bit older. She'd never trained in her life, and she'd always show me these girls, and she's like, she looks amazing. She looks amazing. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do a little bit of research on this girl that she showed me. And I was like, you remember that girl you showed me? She's a great motivation. I was like, guess how many years she's been training? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, 11 years. And I was like, we're in year 1, girl. Let's do this. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. And what it actually did is it's like, I didn't really want to, and it's like a bit of a risk, but create distance between where she is and where she wants to be. But more the fact of like gain respect of like how amazing it is that these people that look awesome and, are strong and have lean muscle, maybe low percentages of body fat or a great relationship with food, whatever it might be, they've worked really hard to get that. And she actually grew a lot of respect for it, which is now her motivation, and she kills it every single day. She knows she has her hard days, and she's in her head, she's like, these other girls had those hard days. If they can do it, I can do it. And it makes such a big difference to, I guess what you're expecting to come from going to the gym day to day. You're like, you can't go to the gym and for a week be like, my glutes haven't grown. It's like 100% they have not. Absolutely. So yeah, and it's just like a good example of like, I guess just having a good understanding of what people have gone through to get what they have. And it's a really cool, respectful thing. And you get to take that on motivation because we're all human, so we can all do it.
Yeah, that's where comparison is actually a good thing, right? Like,
yeah,
looking at yourself and comparing yourself to other people and being like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And then comparing your journey, like actually compare your journey with their journey. Like, don't compare the results. Like, okay, it took her 11 years. I cannot then complain when I've been doing it for a year.
100%.
But we don't, it's a highlight reel though. We do only show those like
It is like that.
transformations.
And I guess like we just have to be, I think, just self-aware, you know, and that's where like you can compare yourself to other people, but it's more of like from a manner of you trying to build your own, I guess, like respect and like motivation towards what it is you're working towards and how great that is as well. Because there is nothing in life that is freaking great and awesome that comes easy. And that's like, you know, where a lot of the problems come these days with like just instant gratification and how everything's so accessible in front of us. And how I think like personally, as like this day and age goes, like this generation moves forward, training and resistance training and building muscle and stuff actually in some ways will actually probably get harder because yeah, it's delayed gratification. A hell of a slow one as well.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more rewarding. So yeah, I think it's a big part of the success is creating the right motivation and mindset to, you know, build the muscle and knowing what that muscle actually represents and what it can give to them as well. And as the little back bonus, they look good.
Yeah.
Bloody oath.
And so what else? It gives us confidence. It gives us confidence in ourselves. It gives us a sense of I've worked hard. What about like longevity wise? Why is muscle so important for specifically women as we get older? Does it do anything to our health?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so within women, just generally aging, we all have, you know, one thing that we're most aware of is menopause. It's not something that women generally have to worry too much about until you're getting close to the ages of like that 45, 55 age group, right? And this is when your hormones are no longer going to be produced like normal. Now, one of the biggest things that women deal with is like that osteoporosis, right? And this is where your bones are nowhere near as strong as they usually are. They actually start to deteriorate over time. And what we need to understand is like, not me, but what you girls might need to understand as well is that resistance training, lifting weights, getting stronger will build bone mineral density, right? Having more muscle in the body will keep you younger, and it will also, like low key in the back end of things, stop you from gaining as much body fat because muscle is like an engine. It requires fuel. So having more of it on your body is huge. And realistically, you know, if you are the individual that trains throughout her life, and it doesn't have to be like 5 days a week, but like, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, you train with good intensity, you know, you train hard. You're going to put yourself in the best position for later on in life because it's one of those things where you can't be like, oh, like it's too late. It's too late. You can be like, oh no, I just start training now. And it's like, it's huge. So girls lifting weights and going to the gym, yeah, it brings you the confidence and everything, but it actually brings you a brighter future. It's going to help you be healthier for longer. And it's going to stop you from, you know, we can't say this all the time, but like, you know, being the old lady that falls over and shatters her whole hip, you know, like that's really bad. And you don't recover as well. And if it means that going to the gym when you're younger and moving your body and exercising throughout your life can help you avoid these massive life-changing incidences that you don't want, then I think, you know, you wouldn't want to get to that later on in life and be like, damn, I regret not going. Because it is something you can control. So, you know, going to the gym, yeah, builds muscle, it builds your glutes, it gets you feeling strong. But yeah, you get stronger bones. It's going to help you live longer. You're going to be younger as well. And it's like kind of crazy how there can be so many like just crazy obvious benefits to it all, but it is still really challenging. And I think that's why it's freaking awesome, because nothing awesome is easy. So yeah, you've got to get into it to get all of those things.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think we're getting so much more data and research and science on it now. Like even people like my mom are talking to me saying like, I listened to Mel Robbins' podcast and I heard this older woman talking about strength training, because I think 10, 15, definitely like 20 years ago, strength training for women was like not really a thing.
Wasn't even a thing. Back when I was in school, I was literally probably like one of 5 kids that went to the gym. I reckon now, like every kid would go to this gym these days, including girls.
And thank God for that. And I think it's important, like if we've got a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 60-year-old listening to this podcast today, you're so right in the sense that like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now.
100%.
Like if you are 45 listening to this and you've never stepped foot in the gym, now is the time.
Absolutely.
There's never a better time to start, and your 20 years later self will thank you for starting now rather than sort of just being like, oh, well, it is too late. Of course, it's going to be a completely different journey if you are starting at 45, who's starting at 20.
Yeah.
The majority of my listeners are around 30, 25. But I think it's so important to just know that like wherever you are, starting is so important.
Absolutely. And it just, I think even just educating yourself and even just like us talking about these things, it can help you find that why as well. You know, what's the reason you go to the gym? What's the value? Why do you need to go? And it can be something as simple of like, I want to fall over and break my hip when I'm older.
Yeah.
Sick, dude. Bloody oath.
Yeah.
And in return, that's going to help you build some muscle and get stronger. And it helps with so much other things. And before you even know it, having an alternative sort of motive, you're like, I actually feel more confident now. Wow, I'm eating more food I didn't even realize. And it's like all of a sudden you're now exposed to all these other awesome benefits too. And I think that's why, like, all of us gym goers and stuff, we just like go to the gym, like it will change your life.
It really will. And I think like you can start with a mindset of like, I just want to look better.
Yeah.
Like let that be the motivator.
That is okay.
And go and then start to feel better and you will be surprised. I think it's really like just getting in there and not really worrying. I think about like my mom who's like, I don't want to look like you. I'm like, okay, then that doesn't matter. Go and feel like you'll feel good. You'll feel so good.
And so many people, I think, as well. And as I've sort of gotten older, you understand it more. But it's like, you don't also have to go to the gym to burn fat and look better. Because, so often I'll speak to girls and they're like, I don't have any goals, but I've been told I should train. And it's like, absolutely, you should. And it's like, you don't have to be chasing a steady progression as well. And it's like, if you are, some people say that's bad. You need to have values that focus on making you feel good. It's like, bro, they're going to come, and it's like, I think whatever's going to help you get that foot in the door and get you moving initially is the best thing ever. Because like I said, you're going to be exposed to so much more. I can almost guarantee you that initial motivator will probably end up being the last thing you even think about a lot of the time.
100%. And yeah, that's so true. So what's some common misconceptions that women have around building muscle?
Where'd my water go? There it is.
Oh, there it is.
I guess when it comes to misconceptions around building muscle, I think it's hard because a lot of people think that you have to like bulk. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I have to bulk to build muscle. And it's like, yeah, like you can 100%. But you also don't have to, there's lots of ways that you can kind of focus on building muscle, and it's like, if you get someone that does come to me and, or anyone, for example, is just like, I want to build muscle as fast as I physically possibly can. Then, okay, then maybe putting yourself into what we might call a bulking phase can be beneficial to you. But for some people as well, like sacrificing and gaining body fat that can affect our, our mood and our energy and our motivation, then maybe bulking as hard as possible isn't actually the answer. And change that direction a little bit. And I think the misconception is like, I don't want to eat 2,000 plus calories a day to build muscle. It's like, oh, you don't have to. It's all good. Like we can try to keep you a little bit leaner and keep you leaner as we try and advocate and create this environment to maximize muscle growth while managing body fat, And I think it's like, not just opting out because the thought of like, eating more scares you. I literally had a girl this morning and she's like, and it's taken us a few weeks. I gave her an initial plan. She's like, George, that was too much food. I'm like, no worries, girl. Let's pull it down a little bit. Let's see how that feels. And she's like, that's better. And now she's back above what I originally had her on. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, my weight hasn't changed. I feel good. And 2 girls asked me if I had a BBL. And I'm like, dude, how sick's that? And I was like, you got to sometimes live through it to realize as well. Because she was, I don't want to eat more food. I can't build muscle. No way. I'm already too big. And, she is one clear example where she's super young. I was like, how long have you been training, girl? She's like, 1 year. I'm like, well, you, in the politest way, you don't have as much muscle as you think you do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it is like, I think don't be scared of building muscle, but, like misconceptions of building it is like, you don't have to eat 1,000 calories, like 10,000 calories a day. You don't have to force feed. But, I think it's like, you do have to work hard.
Yeah, I think the dirty bulking was like a phase for a little while. Like we had this real like just girls getting super thick and guys, specifically more so guys. But
I did it.
We've all been there. But I think it's kind of like, I think with this new sort of hybrid phase that we're in like marathons being trendy and hybrid like people being trendy, leaner people.
You got running shoes on.
Yeah.
I'm hybrid now.
Oh, I actually feel like I could freaking run a marathon in these shoes. They're so comfortable.
They look so comfortable.
They're great. But I think like this people are sort of realizing that you can be lean and be muscly, like because we're seeing these hybrid people that are pretty lean but they are pretty muscly.
Yeah.
And I think bodybuilders always have it that you can either be really lean in a prep or you're thick in a growing. But now that's sort of definitely gone.
100% it is, absolutely. And I think more and more is that becoming, I think, best practice as a coach, personally. Not everyone is actually like, and same for guys. Not everyone's made to like put 5-10% body fat on in 3 months. Like you can see that, and you can feel that for sure. And to anyone, it's going to affect a lot of things, right? And I think you don't have to be going down those paths, and there's so many ways to create the outcome you want, and it does make a big difference when you kind of get, I guess, like a bit of clarity around it all too. 100%.
And that just comes from good coaching, really.
There you go, right?
So give me the fundamental sort of framework of building muscle. You've obviously just touched on it, that you don't have to bulk, but what is like where would you say is your comfortable ground?
I think like when it comes to building muscle, it's like to me, it's like we've all heard it before, but if you kind of haven't, it's like, we've got to be consistent. 100%, right? It's one of the biggest linking factors to a lot of girls' success is like consistency. But then it does get a little bit harder than that sometimes as well, right? I think one of the biggest things I found over my 10 years of coaching and, 7 years of face-to-face training, it's like intensity matters, right? So when it comes down to, I guess like building muscle and, I don't like to use the word getting bigger because I work with females, so I don't say that actually, but like getting more toned, because that does generally mean you got to build some muscle there. Mm-hmm. Not force feeding food down your throat. That doesn't have to happen. Optimizing and having a high protein environment, right? Number one, 1,000%. Don't quote me on this and don't clip it, but like fats and carbs don't matter. In reality, they really don't. Get your protein and go. Stay consistent with your calories so you can manage that body fat, but then you've got the fuel and the fuel needed to support lean muscle growth, right? And the way I sort of say it is like, we're going to maximize the amount of muscle we can build while making sure we don't gain body fat. But if it was the other way around, where it's like, we're going to maximize muscle growth and not worry about body fat, again, progression and the direction of that's slightly different. So understanding what it is you're going to do and, what the outcome is you're sort of looking for. Focusing on a high protein environment and training hard and training with intensity. You got to push it 100%. Girls, you have to train hard. Like, it has to happen. And if you're not willing to do that, then yes, you're not going to progress as fast. I can tell you 100%. The girls that I have on board, and I have so many, the ones that train harder and put the effort into progression or progressive overload, do build muscle much better. And I think it's like, one of those things where like, also, you girls have some estrogen laying around. You can handle that stress. In reality, you really can. You can handle more volume than a man, right? So when it comes to like that, training volume, like, in the gym with sets and just like how many times you're going to hit legs per week, it's so big. So it's just like high protein environment, be consistent massively within the protein and then within the gym. I think the fundamentals get sort of really caught up. Like, you don't have to have a morning routine to build muscle. In reality, when you wake up and when you go to sleep, make sure you eat your protein, you stay on your calories. Make sure you're consistent with that. Make sure you go to the gym and you put the effort in and make sure you're consistent with that. And then just sleep. Get enough sleep. You don't have to be hitting these steps. Like, there's so much more to it, but just building muscle, protein, sleep, and train hard. It's so simple.
The consistency point, I think, is the most important point there. Though,
and it keeps coming in, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it always will. We expect things to come quickly in terms of building muscle or even just feeling better or whatever, but it's all going to come from consistency, and it's all going to come from what you do most of the time. If you're training most of the time and you're eating protein most of the time, you're probably going to build some muscle.
Absolutely.
And I think we sort of go like, well, how much muscle and how do I know?
Yeah, I don't want to get too big either.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest misconception.
Yeah.
Let me tell you right now, the biggest misconception is girls coming to saying, I don't want to get too bulky. I'm like, I've been trying.
I've seen how hard Morgan trains, bro. Like, and it's the thing, right? And you're like, I wish it was that easy. God damn it.
Yeah, damn. I wish I would just wake up one day looking like Ronnie Coleman. Like, fuck, we all think it, right? That's definitely the biggest misconception. But yeah, so consistency, protein, training hard.
Absolutely.
The recipe for growth.
It literally is, and it goes back to what you said earlier. It's like you are a representation of your habits and your choices and your behaviors, and like just because someone has, and it goes to like people saying like, if you got abs, it doesn't mean that you're healthy as well. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't 100%, because maybe that person is lean, but doesn't make good choices. But if you are consistent with the right choices, like eating more protein and going to the gym, and that becomes a little bit more of a habit, that habit is now going to represent a really nice, awesome looking version of you. And it's going to continue to improve over time. If it is a bit of a part, like if it is that better part of your lifestyle now, and it does get easier, guys, 100%.
It gets easier, but it never gets easier, because
that's also true.
It gets easier in the sense that you can get there, but then you push yourself harder and harder. And so it always is, but you learn to love that.
You do. You definitely do. And I think like that's a good way to put it, because I think the action itself gets easier. to get up and start walking. That gets a little bit easier over time. Like the friction between you, like, you know, starting the task, right? Because that's generally the hardest part. I'm the master procrastinator. You know what I mean? But once I start, we're good. And if you can like really reduce the amount of friction between you starting that little task or going for your walk or going to the gym, the sooner you're going to get it done, the better you're going to feel. And it definitely does get like that little bit better as time goes on. And that's where it gets easier. But then yes, you do challenge yourself because really you start to crave that, you know, and you're actually, it's funny, but like your ability to push through and utilize willpower within yourself actually grows and gets better. And as an extreme environment, it can get to that point where you actually start getting really good endorphins from it. Because yeah, you got to kind of suffer a little bit, but you know, pursuing and going through hardship is really important. And you know, that's where it does get easier, but it's not, you know?
You get stronger and your mind gets stronger and you love that for yourself, which is a great part of it.
Yep.
So glutes then, specifically glutes. What's the biggest mistake that people make when they set out growing their glutes, training their glutes?
The biggest mistake that I see made, I think, when it comes to just trying to grow their glutes, and what was the other one?
Mistakes. I can't even remember what I just said.
It was like grow your glutes, and I think just like honestly it's overcomplicating it 100%. You know, not being real with yourself as well. I think in reality, people think they have to train that 5 times a week because they will look at someone like yourself or an influencer, but how many times do you train? It's like, well, look, to be honest, it doesn't actually matter, but I train 5 days. They're like, cool, I'm doing 5 days now. And it's like, no, you can't work 5 days, you know? And in some like cases as well, it can be almost an opt-out too, where it's like, I can't train 5 days a week. It's like, you don't have to, you know? And, you know, that's like, it's going to really hinder your progression and how much you're going to succeed. And if we're not setting realistic, achievable goals as well, you're only doing yourself a disservice because you're not going to motivate yourself. You're better off doing 5,000 steps a day and writing that down as your goal and killing it. Realistically, like you need 10, but you're better off hitting the 5 every day because after a few weeks, you're like, it'll be 6 or 7. Before you know it, you're cleaning up what you thought was unobtainable, right? And it does get like that a lot easier. So, you know, not setting the bar so far, but like, you know, I think not overcomplicating the process, keep it simple and just focus on the protein coming in and just getting into the gym because it is overcomplicated. Girls really do try and I think punish themselves in a way of over exercising too. More isn't more, right? Do the train smarter, not harder. We all hear these things all the time, but in reality, you don't have to train 5, 6, 7, 8 times a week, right? It's like get 3 to 4 really good sessions in per week. If you're someone, even in their first 1 to 2 years of training, that can be enough, 100%. And then like, you know, slowly build up from that. But it does come back down to the fact of, I think 9 times out of 10 when I speak to girls is just overcomplicating the tasks that need to be done. And I think just like maybe not willing or not wanting to maybe just like educate a little bit more. I always say it to all of my girls. It's like knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you understand, the more intrinsically motivated you're going to be to get this shit done, right? And to actually like create the right dialogue mentally to get it done. And yeah, I think that's where I just keep coming back to, and that's what I seem to keep finding the most of my efforts go around is, you know, kind of just like bringing it back to some form of like achievable realization that it's like, okay, you can get it done in a really effective way that's not going to blow my schedule out of the park. It's not going to take away my life. And it's something I say to a lot of the girls that just got on board. I'm like, yo, I'm here to make your life easier, you know, and take away the stress of like, am I making gains? Am I doing the right thing? Yeah. And just provide that support and advice. It's like, yo, I'm your wingman in the gym. You need anything, you let me know. If an exercise or something's not working out, we'll sort that out. Right. But it is just like keep things simple, girls, and don't overcomplicate the process. You know, you don't have to bulk. You don't have to do crazy things. It's like literally just get started and be consistent. Show up and go to the gym 3 days a week and just eat some protein and focus on protein. Yeah. It's so simple. And it's like, it's never, when it's too simple, it's almost like not believable. You know, like I tell my mom 10,000 steps a day, mom, I promise you can burn some fat. No way. No, I'm like, bro.
It's all right. I grew up with knowing, hearing, you know, every diet under the sun. I'm going to give up carbs, sugar, lollies. I'm like, oh my God, if only it was just eat this, you know, eat a calorie deficit, we're all good.
Yeah, literally.
Okay, so take me through your top glute exercises.
I think it kind of varies. But I think it's like an OG for me. It's something you'd see me do all the time. It's like a Romanian deadlift. I think you just put yourself in such an awesome position to, you know, stimulate your glutes, right? It's a length and bias movement. You get to use a crazy amount of load considering you're like even what you would consider strong. If you're working hard, that's heavy for you. So that's great. You're recruiting so much muscle. So Romanian deadlifts, they're an absolute staple with any of my girls' plans, whether that's with a barbell, dumbbells, trap bar, single leg. Like there's a lot of variations of the same thing we can do. But Romanian deadlifts, number one. Number two, how would I say number two is? I think we probably go with like some form of like pressing movement. It's the cool thing with the gym is like your choices on movement pattern is going to be more like based around what you like. Because in reality, like a rear foot elevated lunge to a Bulgarian lunge, like there's not a crazy difference. The movement pattern's pretty much the same. And then if we want to go like sort of similar again, we've got like front foot elevated lunge, single leg press. Like we can keep naming them. And these are just all unilateral movements that create a movement pattern that you can adjust to hit your glutes or not. So like I would always come off the RDLs, and more often than not, I'll move into like usually a single leg movement. And I think for number two, it would be like Bulgarian lunges. Again, I like the whole loading aspect of it. You can perhaps use a single leg movement that doesn't incorporate as much quad, but like looks the same, like a cable step down, or again, like maybe a reverse lunge or a static lunge as well. But I think Bulgarian's good because again, you get to create a heap of load. You work stabilizers in the glutes, unless you choose like a Smith machine or something. There's a heap of like different ways you can do it too, like dumbbells, but you can use the barbells, you can use a Smith machine. Like there's even machines now for Bulgarians, and they're a staple. And it's one of those ones that you just like, I think I like it because everyone hates it too. It's like a PT toxic trait. Like Bulgarians, let's go. They suck, but they're also extremely beneficial. So yeah, I think RDLs, Bulgarians, and then number three as like a fundamental in the glute building. If we're not going to be considering like hamstrings and we're going like purely entirely on glutes, I would say some form of like a lateral abduction, whether that's like a lying single leg abduction where you can load the hip, or using a cable and doing some form of like unilateral abduction work where you're lifting your leg to the side. So we're trying to work our glute medius and our glute minimus. What you girls mostly relate to as a shelf, right? And then basically based off those three exercises, if you just did those three and actually went super simple and did RDLs, a single leg movement and a kickback, you're going to start seeing gains. And that I think those three movements would help us challenge the movement, our glutes in the right way. And if there's one more, I'd be hip thrusts, some form of hip thrust variation as well, because it's a bit of a staple OG, of course, but I can't be like everyone else and say hip thrusts.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of like fizzling out of the hip thrust era anyway.
Dude, I do them. They're so uncomfortable.
I just hate setting them up.
Facts. Well, that's why I think a lot of people still pay me to PT.
Yeah, well, that's true.
All the time. Oh, I'm not used to not getting my weights done. I'm like, here I am. Like,
that's me in prep with Callum. I'm like, Cal, can you just come here and
just
unrack
get my
my
weights
stuff,
for me.
please?
Literally, I know the feels.
Okay, so we're thinking, okay, so we've got RDL, we've got like a Bulgarian. What makes that specifically a glute exercise? Because I'm sure we could make the Bulgarian a quad exercise and we could make the RDL like a hamstring exercise. 100%. What are we doing to actually make that glutes?
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is like the cool dynamic with the body, because you can do the same thing, you just change and adjust a few little angles and the way you feel it is entirely different. And there's actually a video on my Instagram, by the way, guys, where I actually just adjust one of my client, Bailey's position of her body. It looked pretty much right. It is 100%, but just with a small alteration of like taking load off the knee and pushing it back a little bit and then angling her chest forward to like already preemptively lengthen the glute. She's like, well, okay, I feel that now. Wow. And if you can actually feel what you're trying to work, it does make a big difference. It's almost a misconception that people create where it's like mind-muscle connection. That's personally, in my opinion, not something where you kind of like close your eyes and focus on squeezing. It's where you actually close your eyes and focus on the consistency through technique that allows you to achieve the muscle that you're targeting. So for a glute focus, it's going to be knee angle and hip angle, the two biggest things. Same with like RDLs and Bulgarians, already glute focused movement. If we can make sure that the front knee is being stabilized and we're not allowing or advocating for the knee to correctively move forward first, right? And that's with like any squat movement, lunge pattern, even RDL. If you're someone that you notice your knees collapse and go forward before you start lowering, then we're going to generally look at you and be like, you're probably going to start using your quads a bit more than you would like to. Unless you want big quads, no worries. And then hip angle too, right? So like leaning forward, right? When we lean forward, that's going to help us stretch and activate the glutes. So if you can stabilize that front knee as you go through any squat pattern, and then take your chest forward just a little bit while arguably keeping that spine neutral, you're going to be putting your body in the better position to use the glutes as you load up that exercise. And then your mind-muscle connection comes on your ability to maintain that position as intensity increases. Because like, let's just say like your body doesn't want to grow your glutes. You're like, hey guys, you're like, hey body, I'm going to put you in this position that's going to really destroy these glutes. They're going to start tearing. The first thing your body does when it starts getting uncomfortable is like, it's fight or flight. Are you going to tap in?
Up.
Yeah, literally. Like, are you going to tap into the set, or are you going to be like, okay, it's too much. It's too uncomfortable. Right. And like, I train girls as well. I can see it coming in their eyes. They're like, I can see them and I'm like, oh shit, she's going to stop in a sec. And it's actually those reps that count the most. But yeah, your ability to maintain form and technique under intensity is going to make a huge difference as well on where you build muscle, because it comes under that conversation of like, I'm quad dominant. It's like, trust me, you're just moving quad dominant. I don't think your body's like choosing quads. It's just how we choose, like, or I guess like how we're moving and what our coordination's offering as well. Because, sometimes people don't actually know the technique to maybe isolate and prioritize the glutes. And the beauty of training and stuff, there's so many like different benefits. People will be like, oh, you can still push the knee forward and work the glutes. And 100% you can.
Yes.
Right? Find that sweet spot. We know that avoiding flexion on the knee, right, avoiding it stops you from working as much of the quad. So cool, let's see if we can pull it back a little bit and find that sweet spot, because 100%. So again, like back to Bailey is one of those like girls that I was helping, and I was like, push the knee forward like this much. Boom, she's like 5 kilos stronger. I'm like, sick, that's perfect. And that's exactly what we want. I want you to feel stronger, be in a good position, but we're like right on the money with like maximizing the most amount of my glutes.
Yeah.
And she might be like, oh, I feel my quads still. I'm like, dude, 100%. You're bending the knees, you're squatting, you will.
Still will.
You're gonna feel the quad.
Yes.
100%. But don't worry about it. Just focus on your form, and the glutes are gonna grow.
That's a really good point, actually. Sorry to cut you off, but that's super important, is that when Callum says this to me all the time, because I really struggle with my glute training, and I'll be doing something and I'm like, Callum, I can't feel it in my glutes. He's like, you're literally like, your glute has to be working right now to be doing this exercise. Like it is working. And so, yes, we want to have that mind muscle connection. And what you were saying is a little bit of a, it's a funny thing, but like sometimes if you're just doing the form right, you push through the intensity, you're probably going to be working it, and you don't have to squeeze the muscle every single time.
Yeah, sit there and hold it. Okay, and go again. Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Because you can't, like, technically you can't really squeeze your glute at the bottom. No, not even technically. You can't squeeze your glute at the bottom of a Bulgarian. Like, no. That's a stretched position, not a squeezed position. So
100%.
It's not always about, can you squeeze it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's like, like where it comes back down to like that position of the body. So as you're approaching that lengthened position, have you set everything up within your torso and your hips to stretch the glute as much as possible? It's like, when people are like, oh, look, I can touch my toes. It's like straighten the legs now. It's like, oh, that's a stretch. Yeah. Right. Same thing applies, right? You think you're stretching your glute, you put your body in position. You're like, oh my God, I feel it way more now.
Yeah.
And that's just like, locking into the intensity and like, yeah, just like slowly letting it build. And like I was like with the knee angle and the hip angle, the same relates to, any movement where we're trying to focus on glutes. There is a bit of leeway. And if you know that your technique's good, yeah, don't worry about your quads burning. Because it's okay, and maybe if your position for the movement was a bit different, you felt your quads, then yeah, you might look at that and be like, that's a lot more quads for sure. So let's move the position, know that and with confidence that the technique we're applying is going to help us target the glute, and wherever it's burning, that's okay. Same with kickback. So you're like, how often does the opposing leg burn? And it's like, well, if you're in the correct position, most of the time it will.
Yeah. And it's not like the other glute's not doing anything, right?
Yeah, literally.
So is stretched position, loading the stretch position and having good form crucial?
Absolutely. 100%. As is focusing on like top range position. So like that contracted position where you're flexing the muscle 100%, but just like all over the years. And like, it's actually crazy because like, I feel like the first half of my life in training, I never really heard about new research, never really heard about much really going down. And like nowadays you're like hearing all these cool little facts coming out, but like, we are finding out that like, yeah, being in the lengthened position and spending time in that position is going to be most beneficial to building muscle. The top range position, like that concentric hold when you're at the top of a movement,
like a hip thrust.
Yeah, like a hip thrust and stuff. Like, well, actually, in correction, the hip thrust is like one of the few movements where that is the main point of the movement, right? Because you do have different types of exercises where your focus is either the lengthened position or the shortened position, right? Just going back and like on what you were saying, like, is the lengthened position the most important when it comes to like, or like a crucial like component? 1000%. I would even say it's more crucial than the shortened position. But then it's good to have a benefit or a balance of both, right? I literally said this as an example to one of my girls today, and she was like doing her shoulder press. Like, can I do it like this? And she was pressing it up and stopping about here and then coming back down. right? It's not a half rep. Like, yes, you can lock out the elbows. And what I just said and explained to her, I was like, yeah, you can do it that way. It's not wrong. But what I reckon is like, let's extend the elbows and practice getting the arm straight. Because low key, if you don't practice that extension and practice using the body in its full range, bro, you could throw a ball, goes your elbow because you've never practiced extending the elbow, right? So there's just like different motives around why you would do it. You know, some people are like, oh, I can't be bothered getting all the way up. No worries, bro. But like, if you plan on throwing something in the next 12 months, and trust me, as a bodybuilder, you start throwing stuff, you're like, wow, my joints aren't the same. Because yeah, I'm that one where I was just pumping them out, focusing on range of motion and depth, but never creating the full extension of the elbow or, you know, stabilizing my spine correctly. And then this is where we all become really stiff and stuff. And I think throwing us all back to the girls, I think a lot of girls kind of like low key, without saying it, just want to be like a little beast. Like if the boys are throwing the footy, you want to be able to run and get into it and not just like be a bit of a kook. And if, you know, you train to get into it, you use your body, it actually all develops. And, you know, so there's like a little added motive as well of going to the gym. You know, you're not as Gumby. You do learn a lot of coordination. I never loved training a dancer or a gymnast more because they just know how to move their body. So when you give cues and help with that, they just apply it straight away. Yeah. But yeah, so like there's different, how's me on the tangent, but shorten position, lengthen position, both are freaking awesome and beneficial. I guess like understand the benefits of everything. Fully extending at the top of a shoulder press does have its benefits. Is it the end of the world if you don't? No. Hip thrust and stuff, there's mad exercises where top end position is the main focus. So hip thrust being one of the few, right? Where the top of the position is the main priority. So make that your priority. Whereas with an RDL, the main priority is the bottom. So spend the most time there and stay in control at the bottom.
Yes, super, super important. Like when we're thinking about training, this goes for beginners or anyone. Like if you're doing an RDL and you're standing at the top for ages and then you're going, whoop,
yeah, just like springing it down.
It's like, okay, like, yes, you could get strong and maybe you'll progress in that way. But yeah, are you giving your glute or the muscle that you want to work? If you just want to do RDLs for doing the sake of RDLs, sure. But 100%. If you want to grow your glutes, then yeah, spend that time in that bottom position. I think that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, yo, you're already here. You may as well do it. You were planning on doing the 10 anyway with whatever form. So you may as well put that effort into it. And it's like, you know, like when it is kind of hurting, that's like the whole idea, right? So, you know, just get yourself through it and get it done and try apply that right form and put the effort into the right areas. And, you know, you girls will get awesome sick gains.
That is so important. Like you are here. You're here already. You're already going to do it. Just spend that extra half a second down at the bottom. We all go through it though. We all go through the kind of like just get through the set. But 100%. Intention is key.
That's it. It actually is something, and intention's a good word. It's funny you actually reminded me, but it's one of the things that I say to, you know, so like on a regular occasion I have girls that come in and I ask as just like a general cue to me. I want to have a rough idea of how strong they are. Like if we did a PT, I'd be like, how much can you hip thrust for 100 for 10 reps? And you tell me a number and I'm like, cool, I just take it on, right? But it's like thinking that more weight is going to be the best result. And I'm like, what I like to do is like, if we're just thinking push, your body will be efficient. We're not made to be very structurally strict. Your body wants to conserve energy, make it easy, make it safe, right? But if we're training with intention, then we're intentionally trying to make this hard. And that's where like form and technique and intensity under technique comes into play, because if we're intentionally training now, we're actually going to be building the glutes. Whereas if you're just thinking push or like straight down, straight up on an RDL, like you're just being efficient, which is freaking great. But are you maximizing your progress here? Are you getting the most out of the weights and the time you're spending in the gym? And it's like, you know, we could say perhaps not, right? And it does make a big difference.
So do you think then that tempo, pausing, eccentrics, do you think that they are all as important as we sort of make them out to be? Or I guess overall we're just looking at time, you know, putting your muscle under load with intention.
Yeah. I think it can be easily like overcomplicated. I think in the deepest parts of training, like for yourself as well and me, like when I was in like my peak of bodybuilding, look, like I relied on tempo a lot of the time to help me create progression. Because look, like if I progress steady from the day one, like same with Cal, you'd be lifting every weight in the gym by now if progression was consistent. Why isn't his bench press 400 kilos? I don't get it. Right. So like there are tools that we utilize, like intensity techniques that we apply into our training to increase the intensity / enjoyment. And it's a little spicy, right? You're like, damn, I hate this one, but it's great. But it helps us achieve the overall goal of like progressive overload and increasing the intensity on the body. And, you know, getting stronger can, you know, be a big part of that success. But, you know, the tempos, the set methods and how we apply different tactics are beneficial. But I think in the initial stages, like just stay in control. Don't let the weight control you. If you feel like the weight's controlling you, then keep it there and let it get better. You want to own that shit. And, you know, I always tell my girls, I want you to exceed the rep range. If it's your final set, and it's like, you know, more often than not, like 2 sets or 3, but if it's your last set, show me and show yourself that you can do more than what we've set for you to do. So try to do 12 instead of 10. And that's going to help you realize that you're actually capable now to put up the weight. Because a lot of the time I'll look through girls' program, I'm like, yo, you're on the same weight. 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I told you to go up a few weeks ago. They're like, I'm like, all right, next week, do as many as you can in the last set. They're like, double the rep range. I'm like, bro, like, I don't know how more obvious you need it. You doubled the reps, you're ready. And then they do it and you start exposing yourself to that environment. You're like, whoa, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But you know, me on another tangent though, but like, yeah, the tempos and stuff, super good. Can be really useful. Don't overcomplicate it. Stay in control. Don't let the weights control you. And let yourself use those tactics as time comes around, you know? If you use all your tools, like, I don't know, it's overwhelming. And again, comes under the context of being too complicated. Oh, can't train. I don't know how to read the tempo. It's like, it doesn't matter. You know, just remind yourself, stay in control. My other saying as well for girls is, I want you to be elegant. Literally. Like I had this one client, she's a sprint. She was, actually I got 2 clients that come to mind. One was a sprinter and one actually hadn't trained before. The sprinter was just so snappy, you know, like would just snap into every movement. Like she's trying to jump as high as she can through a Bulgarian lunge. I was like, elegant girl. I want to say some smooth stuff here. Dude, that was all I had to say. Elegant. And she was like floaty and just turned into this little dancer. And I was like, great, they're training well now. And it's just like, I guess like finding different ways of like trying to get you to understand what it is that needs to be done without overcomplicating it. But tempos and stuff don't matter too much. No.
I do love that though. Like, control the weight, don't let it control you, because it's so often you see it, and I experience it myself.
It looks like they're like, whoa, like that's heady. Yeah.
And sometimes like I do the same though. Like I'll do a set and it will just be like the weights flying around and I'm like, that did nothing.
You're like, I just nearly died, but I'm okay now. Yeah.
Like that was silly. And then you think, okay, cool, like stripping it back, that's so important. And there's a fine line between, yes, strip it back, focus on your form, but then get into the hurt locker, enjoy it, like, because that is where the growth is definitely going to come from at the end of the day.
Absolutely. If you don't have the intensity there, if you're not struggling, if you're not really suffering in those last reps of your training, then unfortunately, you know, your body doesn't really have a real purpose to change. And I hate to say this as like a bad example, and obviously working amongst females, but even as men, but sometimes like, as an example, it has something very traumatic has to go through for you to actually make a change. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom, you know, in a sense, to actually create change. So like now, if we're going to go in the gym and intentionally create change, if something can create change within your body without you really initiating it, but it's happened due to hurt, pain, or suffering, well, let's see what sort of pain, hurt, and suffering we can intentionally put into ourselves to like get that change. Because if you don't put in that effort, well, then you don't really need to change. You know what I mean? If it wasn't a traumatic enough experience and, you know, if it wasn't hard enough for your mentality or your body, then your body has no real reason to change. And you've got to, I think mentally tap into it. And it goes way back to like the whole muscle building thing too. Cause like if you see someone that's jacked or it's got good big legs or muscles, you low key know how hard they're willing to train too. And that's like a respect thing for me. It was a big one in the world of boys and legs. If this dude's got big legs, you know, he trains like an animal. And like, that's just like, head down. You're like, cool, man, that was good. So yeah, that's just kind of where it all comes in down to me. It brings it back for me.
I want you to touch on that a little bit more, because that's a fantastic way of thinking about it. And I have not thought about it a lot in that way of like, when you have bad things, traumatic things happen to you, you are forced to level up. You're forced to grow in your mind, and same with your body. I really like that. Can you like dive into what that means in the sense of muscle building? Obviously, so you're hurting your muscle, making it grow.
Absolutely. So like, just like your body would respond to the trauma, as does your muscle, right? So when we're going through lifts or we're training with weights and we're intentionally going through the set, we all need to remember we're intentionally trying to damage muscle here, right? In an environment that's safe and we're not going to hurt ourselves. And how much damage you can create to this muscle is going to be purely, up to you and how hard you can push mentally. For some people, they need to learn how to push hard, right? That your body resists. It's like, no, and you don't even realize you throw the weights away. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, like that's where you're at, girl. Like, or, you know, like that's where you got to start. But for other people as well, you've got to actually start pushing through those barriers, right? And I can tell you like time and time again with so many of my girls that I've trained over the years is like they hit that barrier, they start training to that next little step, and you really do notice the difference in their progress. The intensity, the effort, the pain, that's the whole reason you've picked up that weight in the first place. The first 8 reps you did is to get you to the last 2 to 3 that are actually hurting. That was the whole reason you started the journey of that first 8 reps. So don't stop now. You know, it's like going on a holiday and like you get to the airport and then you're like, turn around. Why would you do that? You're already there, you know?
Yeah.
And so like bringing that intensity and putting in the damage to the muscle will cause the body to respond and grow and adapt. And I think that's a big one where, you know, we bring it back into our own self and our mindset. Like we're forced to adapt, and that's what we need to choose to do to the body. And, you know, you got to push it to get that out of you.
Yeah. And you know, this is the Mindset Lounge podcast at the end of the day. Like we can apply the rules, like the lessons that we learned from building muscle then into our life as well.
Absolutely.
Like adapting and growing and pushing through hard times and pushing through the last few reps of the exercise of life will make you a better person, a more resilient person, 100%. A stronger person.
It's so 1000%. I could never agree more. And like literally my whole life is to being like, with all the competitions I did, like, George, why do you do a comp prep? And I'm like, honestly, I love how it makes me more disciplined. It creates a stronger mindset. I feel, you know, like I have more purpose in my day. And it's like, yeah, I get to look sick. But like, it's just like what it brings and can offer me. And, you know, having yourself in the gym can change the whole game when it comes to your mindset. You know, training hard. You know, if you're someone that you thought was disciplined, you know, take it upon yourself to see if you can train a bit harder, and you realize that you've got more to actually gain, you know, and more to give as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's the beauty of the mindset. So I love like what you do as well, dude, because, you know, I think the mind is like, it is the most powerful tool. And if you can understand stuff better, it's been a huge part of me, like navigating my life and everything I've gone through is like my interest to learn about, you know, the body and how the mind works and how dopamine works. And, you know, like it helps me sort of just, I guess, like navigate those harder days, but, you know, create, I guess, an environment where I'm really just doing the best part I can to put myself in a position to be as happy and as healthy and as strong or as fit as I possibly can. You know, I'm not really trying to self-sabotage, or if I am, I'm aware of it.
100%. Knowing is just power, really. But to your point with the before, like if you have really, really hard sets and you're like, you really want to quit, your whole body is like, stop, and you do 2 more reps, I bet you're going to have the tough conversation with the partner. You're going to push harder in your job. You're going to pick a healthier food option when you really feel like McDonald's. Like these little things, they like trickle on into every other area of your life. And the other things can then trickle on into your athletic life as well. So like pushing through it will, and having that understanding of like, wow, I wanted to quit because my body wanted me to be safe and I pushed it into a point where it needed to adapt. Wow, I'm pretty mentally strong. And then when you have, you know, an issue come up with your partner and you've got to have a hard conversation, you've got a little bit of proof in your mind that you're like, oh, well, actually, I pushed through something this morning, so I can push through this. It all ties in together.
It does. And it's the cool and the craziest thing with like the body, right? And, you know, how everything we've done and how it's, you know, it's even like nowadays where, you know, someone might have a poor quality about them. Like we're talking about the dating world now, right? And they're like, oh, red flag. It's like child trauma. I'm like, yeah, well, actually, probably, you know, like, because holy shit, like we adapt and absorb everything we see, what we're around. And if you now start to choose that path that is like, you know, choosing you to force like the discipline in the training and in the sets, because it's one of the cool things that you get to do in life where you get to choose that hard. And if you're choosing the hard, you progress more rather than having to like, hit rock bottom and have to make a forceful change. You get to now choose that hard, control it, and choose how much you grow. And, you know, pushing through those sets, girl, definitely makes you a hell of a lot more capable mentally in and out of the gym.
The analogy of like, don't let the weight control you, control the weight. That's applies to life. Like, don't let life control you, control your life. Like you are 1000% in control. And I think the lessons that you learn from building muscle and having a coach and going to a trainer and learning to take control of your mind and your body, that you do really start to realize that you are in control of your whole life.
Absolutely. 1000%. And it's such a cool thing to actually experience, because I think like people haven't even like trained in their life. Like to people like us, it's like, it's unfathomable, because it's like you have no idea what you're just missing out on, you know. And it's not actually the muscle, you know. It's not actually the muscle is what you're missing out on, dude. I can promise you that. I think it's the best thing ever, and training is one of the most powerful things that you can be doing for your mindset and for your health, and it's going to take you a lot further along in life, and you'll be a lot happier as well. I think it's only recently that training is now a prescribed practice for, helping people with suffering from depression. Took long enough, you know?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think it's so important. Like, we're here today talking about a muscle building, the podcast is about growing muscle, but at the end of the day, like, it's all about the mindset. It's all about your health, your happiness and your health and your well-being.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be here talking about growing muscle if it was just for aesthetics. Like, if it only benefited you for an aesthetic appearance thing, we wouldn't be talking about it, because that's got nothing, right?
Yeah, it's got nothing on what actually is to be offered from, just being healthy and exercising. It doesn't have to be lifting weights, guys, as well. Just any form of exercise is going to have a huge impact on your mindset and your ability to just kill life and create the life it is that you want, because you are in control of everything. And if it's good, even in the reflection of like accountability, like, when you've called it a rep short.
Yeah.
Like, look, here's a trainer, when a girl pulls it short, I know as well, but I don't make it obvious. I'm like, it's all good and that's work, but low-key, and like, more often than not, you're okay with dealing with that. And then, that's going to be like a bit of a limitation to you. It's going to be a bit of a barrier. But if you're willing to push through that and continue to push through that, there'll be never any barriers in life ever again. It's just like, what's next? What can I get through? And I think if we all have like that sort of purpose as well and that mindset, a lot more people will be happier. And I think, in ways, be nicer too.
100%.
Yeah.
So is there anything around muscle building, glute growth, that we haven't covered today that you think is an essential thing that somebody needs to hear?
Honestly, I think when it comes down to everything, it is just the simple facts of just be consistent with the routine, focus on eating protein, and put that effort in the gym. And you bring those three things, you're going to start to see the results that it is that lots of girls want. Your glutes are going to grow. And, if you're consistent with the food you're eating, you don't have to go into a bulk to build the muscle. You can stay lean throughout that process as well. Don't overcomplicate the process. Keep things nice and simple, and do something that you love, that you enjoy, that you can maintain as well, because the training plan that you can follow for a year, even though you might be bored, is a hell of a lot better than the one you followed for 2 months. Can promise you that, and then stopped. So, keep things simple, don't overcomplicate it, fuel your body, eat your protein, and be consistent. And I think outside of that, it's like, stop overcomplicating it. It's a really cool, simple task, and remind yourself that so much comes from training, more than just building glutes.
100%. And it's so important to not compare yourself to other people at all, because you can be consistent. As long as you're being consistent and you're enjoying it, that's the win. Like, that is what you should be saying. Okay, this is successful. Not whether or not your glutes look like somebody else's, or that your delts look like somebody else's, or your waist
100%.
or whatever. If you are feeling good, you're progressing, you're confident, all of these things matter so much more. And if you can put that focus into that, you will be consistent for longer,
100%.
but you'll just enjoy the process so much more.
Absolutely. And it was actually something I thought of actually mentioning today that I didn't mention, but, I think it's like, I'm sure you've heard this saying as well. There's actually now a few things that come to mind, but like, the pain of suffering is never as bad as the pain of regret. So when it comes to adhering to your food, or just getting out of the car and going to the gym, like, reminding yourself of that, right? It makes such a big difference to the overall, just like the task that needs to be done and how you're going to feel afterwards. There was another thing that I was going to say. Yeah, so I was doing a group call with all my girls the other day, and it's like, okay, like, I think, back to, my example I gave earlier with the girl that saw the lady who's been training 11 years, and she's like, wow, she grew a heap of respect from that. And then I think it's like, in other ways of also looking at it is like, every single day, it's not about being perfect. Some people also find that it's like, didn't go for my morning walk today, game over. Or I ate a breakfast with my friend, game over, I'm eating shit all day now. But it's like, remember that everything we do, whether it's with your steps, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's getting a good night's sleep, lifting and hitting PBs, these are all just little deposits into this little savings account. And when this savings account hits your goal, you're going to be hitting your goals. And secretly enough, again, it's in the harsh reality of like, what's real. Okay, maybe your goal glutes is 5,000 training sessions away, but don't get scared by like that. That's life. That's how it is. But start making little deposits and remind yourself that if you got 2 sessions in this week, that's better than none. That's all you needed to do. And, just every single day, and you still get to practice the discipline. You still get to do what you said you are going to do. Being integral is one of the most powerful things a human can do, because we all love to talk the talk, but not actually walk the walk. And if we more often say what we're going to do and don't do it, it actually eats at you. But yeah, I think it's just like a little saying that I kind of went off with the girls as well, where it was like, just make the deposits into your, into your training and into your routine, because it accumulates. As it accumulates, you're getting closer to what you want.
Yeah. And the consistency of that is more important. Like we spoke about it a couple of podcasts ago, like what you do matters. What you do most of the time matters more than what you do some of the time. Like the progress comes from like what you do mostly.
100%.
Like if you have mostly good gym sessions and what we were saying before, like you mostly train hard, sometimes you don't train hard, whatever. It is really what you do most of the time, and most of those deposits. And you can deposit lots of money in your bank account, and then you can take some out and then keep putting money in, and you're still going to reach your goal.
100%.
It might be a little bit slower. And again, it's just being intentional with, well, what actually do you want and how quickly are you going to get it, and do you want to get it?
Literally, exactly it.
I always think about it with there's like different bodybuilders, right? Like you could look at like me and Callum, for example. Callum more rigid, me more flexible. If I did Callum's rigid plan, I wouldn't actually stick to it most of the time. And then it would become a sum of the time and I wouldn't make progress.
Literally.
It's like you've just got to make those deposits in your way.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about putting the effort in and just putting the deposits in where you can, right? And if we make more good deposits more often, yeah, you're going to be sick. You're sweet. You know, and if we really, like, if it is the other way around, then you need to like literally be able to look at that and hold yourself accountable too.
Yeah.
You know?
Honestly, the savings account's a fantastic idea, because if you deposit $1,000 into your savings account most weeks of the year, you'll save money. If you take out $1,000 out of your savings account most weeks of the year, you'll lose money. And that's most and some. So it's like, it literally is just, what are you doing majority of the time?
Keep putting in the good.
Yeah.
And try and do more of the good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of people will get to where they are and realize it's not as crazy and as hard as they might think. It's just, I think just tapping in initially that makes like a massive difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, George, that hour flew by. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Morgan. Thank you so much for having me. I love doing this. It's not something I do all the time. And I literally talk for a living to the screen. So it's nice to talk to someone and actually, talk out loud and get some good information out there.
I think my audience is going to get a lot from this. And honestly, like I came into this thinking we were really just going to get into the technical stuff of muscle building. But at the end of the day, we've tied it all back to confidence, self-belief, life, because that's really what it all is all about.
I think it is 100%. And I love what you're doing, girl. You're doing so good. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Where can people find you if they want to follow you, if they want to be coached by you, if they want to see your content?
So if you want to just see me on Instagram, it's George_Montagné. I'll say the easy way. Or it's GCM Coach. That's probably the easier way to find me. And that's probably the two best ways to get hold of me. Instagram, George_Montagné, or GCM Coach.
I will put all of that in the show notes below anyway, so people can find you. But thank you so much for coming on, guys. If you loved this episode, please share it with somebody you think will benefit. Post it on your Instagram. Tag us. Let us know what you liked. Reach out to us. We would love to hear. But we will see you in the next episodes.
Thanks, girl.
Bye.
See ya.